Well, you read the title right. Every single game in the NFL season this year, I predicted it. So without further ado, welcome back to GSN. Today, I'm going to be showing you my entire prediction for the 2020 NFL season and explaining every single pick we had. So let's get right into it. Here we have a spreadsheet of the entire 2020 NFL season. Green means I picked a victory. Red means I picked a loss. And the few yellow you may see is I picked a tie because there always seems to be one every year. White is a bye, obviously. I have the records on the right, the playoffs down here. But first off, let's start by talking about each individual team and going over an analysis of their games. For the Cardinals, I had them going 7-9 with wins against the Redskins, Jets, Cowboys, Dolphins, Rams, Eagles, and 49ers, most of which at home. I think the Cardinals will improve this year ever so slightly. The Falcons, I had them going 5-11. Obviously not a very good year this year. I did have them winning some games like the Bears, Panthers, Broncos, Raiders, and at Tampa Bay, which might come as a surprise. Baltimore 11-5, Buffalo 10-6, Carolina 4-12, Chicago 6-10, Cincinnati 5-11, Cleveland 7-9, Dallas 8-8, Denver 7-9, Detroit, Green Bay, and Houston all 8-8, Indianapolis 10-6, Jacksonville 3-13, Kansas City 12-4. Chargers 7-9, Rams 6-9-1, the Raiders and the Dolphins both going 8-8, the Vikings going 12-4, the Patriots going 9-6-1, the Saints going 13-3, the Giants going 6-10, the Jets going 3-13, the Eagles going 10-6. The Pittsburgh Steelers going 7-9, the Seattle Seahawks going 12-4, the 49ers going 11-5, the Buccaneers going 11-5, the Titans going 10-6, and the Redskins going 4-12. Let me explain some of my thinking here, because as you can see in the bottom left, if it'll let me zoom in on it, it's just it's not feeling the whole zoom thing. It's supposed to be control roll, but this game is obviously not liking the control. All right, so here what we have here is our playoff picture. So we have the Saints winning the NFC 13-3, the Vikings going 12-4, Seahawks going 12-4, Eagles 10-6, Bucks 11-5 with the first wild card, 49ers 11-5 with the second wild card, and Packers 8-8 with the third. Here we have the Chiefs winning the AFC 12-4, Ravens second with 11-5, Bills 10-6, Colts 10-6, Titans also 10-6, but the Colts win the AFC South. Patriots 9-6-1 make the playoffs, and the Raiders go 8-8. Just a brief explanation on some of the tiebreakers we had, because there were a couple. For the NFC, there were, since the new playoffs have expanded from 6 per conference to 7, I ended up with the 7th team being a 3-way tie between the Cowboys, Packers, and Lions, all at 8-8. So since the Cowboys didn't play either the Lions or the Packers, and the Lions and the Packers did play each other, but they split their series in 1-1, we have to go to the second tiebreaker, which is in division record, in which the Packers and Cowboys will both went 3-3 amongst their division, but the Lions went 2-4. So the final tiebreaker between the Cowboys and the Packers was in conference record, in which the Packers just barely edge out the Cowboys with a 6-6 in conference record, as the Cowboys have a 5-7 in conference record. In the AFC, there was a tie between the Raiders, Dolphins, and Texans, all at 8-8. The Raiders did have a head-to-head victory against the Dolphins. So that took the Dolphins out of the running, and the Raiders had a stronger in conference or in division record. So the Raiders made the playoffs. Maybe some controversial things about the schedule record-wise that I have. I have the Bears being pretty bad. I mentioned this in my NFC North prediction video. I don't think the Bears will be very good. Another thing, I have Atlanta and Carolina both being pretty abysmal this year, going 5-11 and 4-12 respectfully. I think they have some decent pieces both, and I think especially the Falcons have some decent pieces, but I just have to wait on the side that their coaching isn't going to be as good, because personally I don't trust it, and the fact that their division is absolutely stacked. Maybe an injury or two happens. I don't, honestly, out of all the teams I picked, I think the Falcons are definitely better than 5-11. It's just how the schedule turned out. Another couple things. The Packers going 8-8. This is another thing I mentioned. I think they're pretty overrated going into this year. They do end up making the playoffs, though, off of tiebreakers. I think the Cowboys are always overrated pretty much. Maybe some other things. Miami going 8-8 might be a surprise. I think they really showed that they can win games last year under their coach, even though they had a terrible roster. So the upgrade this year leads me to believe that they'll definitely compete for the AFC East. Now that it's much weaker with New England gutted, even though I do still think New England will make the playoffs, and that's where I want to go next. People look at New England's roster and say New England isn't good enough to make the playoffs. But really, like, their coaching has proven themselves. Their worst record that they had in the year without Tom Brady was 8-8. And, like, really, that's, like, the worst they can possibly do. I have them going 9-6-1 because they still have some pieces from the Super Bowl team a couple years ago. I just think that they can still win. You know, like, I still think that they can win it all. Or not win it all necessarily because they're missing too many pieces, but they can still compete for the AFC East and easily make the playoffs. I have them going 9-6-1 here. Yeah, I think the Colts are the best team, or if not, the Colts and the Titans are almost in a dead heat even for the AFC South. I think both those teams could compete. I think now that the Colts have Philip Rivers, they're in a much better quarterback situation than with Brissett. Brings a nice veteran presence. I think their roster is pretty good. They proved that they can win games last year, despite, you know, not having like the most amazing year. They did pretty good. Another thing that somebody might be surprised by is the Los Angeles Rams. I have them going 6-9-1. I don't think that they are a very good team. I think they're definitely declining, and they need to rebuild because so much of their cap hit is going to one part of the ball. I watch out for this team to be in sort of a collapse. I have them losing, as you can see, 5 in a row here with a tie to get out of their slump. But I mean, having them start out, 4-3. I just don't believe in the Rams. They had one good year, but it was super unexpired Super Bowl performance. Jared Goff hasn't really had another good year after the one where they got to the Super Bowl. I don't trust the Rams to be consistently good. Of course, I'm going to be going over all of these records more in depth in individual videos for every single division. I know I messed up when I made the games. I thought the 17-game season started this season, but that starts next season. Also, the playoff, what I was thinking of was the 17 playoffs, which start this division this year, not the 17-game season. Anything else I'd like to mention? I feel like the Washington Redskins, the Jets, and the Jaguars are probably going to be the worst teams in the league this season. I do have the Redskins winning 4 games. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Jets, I believe, both winning 3 games. That would be correct. There's not much that has been shown to me by these teams to make me believe. I think Cincinnati has a pretty bad roster, but Joe Burrow is good enough to get them a couple of victories, and they'll still be picking in the top 10. But overall, it'll be very much improved. Like, Cincinnati fans will have hope, basically, is what I'm trying to say here. So we have, this is the playoff seed that I came up with, and then here are the playoffs that I came up with. You can see the Vikings since it's this what it is the 1 seed gets the only bye, and then the 2, 7, 3, 6, 4, 5, and then the 1 versus the worst, and the remaining 2. So the first game goes Vikings versus Packers here, as it's the 2 versus the 7, which I have the Vikings picking up. Vikings completely outclass the Packers, so I would give that to them. The 49ers and the Seahawks. I have the 49ers beating the Seahawks here in Seattle. I think the Seahawks won a lot of games, but they just don't have enough gas, and the 49ers barely scrape by to make it to the divisional round. The Eagles and the Buccaneers play each other. I have the Buccaneers winning that. Nothing against the Eagles. They're an okay team. I just think they're I think they're the best team in the NFC East. But again, I think the NFC East is one of the worst divisions this year. In the NFC Championship, we have the Saints versus the Vikings. After the Saints knock off the 49ers right here, and the Vikings knock off the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers run out of gas in the tank. That's where they end. And another Saints versus Vikings playoff matchup. Everybody loves these, especially Saints fans. But I have the Saints making it to the Super Bowl. And then on the AFC side, I have the Ravens versus the Raiders. I think the Ravens are definitely the better team. Raiders barely scraped into the playoffs at 8-8. I have Bills versus Patriots. Bills are going to win that. Patriots are going to get outclassed. Finally, get knocked out by the Bills. Bills fans are going to be ecstatic about that one. And I have the Titans actually taking down the Colts in the first round of the playoffs. And then we have Chiefs-Titans. I have the Chiefs winning that. Once again, knocking the Titans out of the playoffs late. I think the Ravens beat the Bills. And then the Ravens beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship to make our Super Bowl Ravens-Saints. I think the Ravens' loss in the playoffs was kind of a fluke last year. They got caught behind and weren't ready. Kind of had like a cocky, we're similar to the vibe of the Super Bowl 50 Carolina Panthers and how they felt like the better team, but like just didn't look prepared at all and got rolled. I think you'll have a similar scenario there as the Ravens make their way to the Super Bowl now that they mean business, and you have the Saints versus the Ravens in the Super Bowl, which I feel like will be a very exciting Super Bowl. Drew Brees trying to ride his career into the sunset with a Super Bowl championship. That offense looks absolutely lethal. The roster is loaded. The Ravens can say the same. I feel like these are arguably the 2 best teams in the NFL, and this will make a very good Super Bowl, as I believe that the New Orleans Saints will take the Super Bowl and Drew Brees will walk into the sunset with a Super Bowl victory. What a story that would be. What a story that would be. So to recap, if you guys want to pause the video, you can look at your team here and see what I predicted them to be. I color-coded everything to make it easy, made it so it was, in order of alphabetical order. I also posted this picture and a spreadsheet where people can do their own on my Twitter, which I retweeted. You can follow me on Twitter. I'll be posting that in the description down below. I'll also be putting it right there. So follow me on Twitter or on my other Twitter where it's more memey, not like the GSN official Twitter. You can follow me right there. So yeah, if you have any questions, let them down below. I'm happy to explain any of my thoughts, but this is not only a prediction, this is what's going to happen. So remember that. This is what's going to happen. Make your bets now, because I just correctly predicted the entire 2020 NFL season. The entire thing. I got every single game right. I went to the future, picked them all out so you could have a cheat code. So here you go. The entire cheat code for the 2020 NFL season. Thanks for watching, and the NFC South video will be coming out soon.